So today I wanted to talk about, well, I mean, you guys know me, I'm George from Firehouse. I wanted to talk about modes. It's, I, I was thinking about doing a series about stuff that I see online a lot, and it's usually wrong. So, like a series clearing like let's call them musical misunderstandings. How about that? So, and modes is a big one because a lot of times, the way I see people teaching the modes, and this is not just like any one guy. Like I've seen this in guitar magazines, I've seen this in books. People use this to sell books, and it's that if you take out, the fingerings of the major scale, you're okay. So it's the C major scale, right? And then, but if I play that, say like starting on F, or that's F Lydian, and then if I take the same C major scale and then play it starting on G, that's G mixolydian, and then if I play starting on A, that's A minor and so on, right? With all the other, no A aeolian if you want to use the modal term. To me, that's natural minor. And I don't like that approach because number one, it really doesn't get at what you use the modes for. So you're missing the point entirely when you're treating scales that way. It's like, oh, it's just like a position, it's a mode. No, that's not what it is. It's a position. You're playing the same scale. And right there, everything I played sounded like C, didn't it? Because I'm giving you no context. I just played a C chord. I didn't even play anything. But your ear defaults to C because the major sound is so strong. So if I play C, right, and then I do that, you're going to hear like, oh, you're playing C starting from 4 and C starting from 5, C starting from 6. Scale degrees, right? And you'd be correct because that's not what a mode is. Well, I hear people talking about pentatonic modes. There's no such thing. There's no pentatonic modes. The pentatonic scale doesn't have any. There's no tetrachord, so there's no way for you to create a modal sound out of the pentatonic scale. So that tells me that a lot of people out there are teaching and they don't understand what the modes are. So modes, really, what it is, the original Gregorian modes, they predate harmony. And I don't want to give you guys a whole history lesson on this stuff. But for our purposes, let's think of the modes as a flavor, a color within the major scale. So why is that important to us guitar players? Well, because you can learn the major scale in one position, and you have all 7 modes in that same position. So what matters, the important part, what I want to show you guys today is what matters is the context. So I can create a tonal center Frank Aballi is brilliant about this. I think he plays a drone bass with the 4 and the 5 of the parent key or something like that to generate a modal sound. That's great. That gives you that fusiony sound that you kind of heard through the like the late 80s. Probably like more like early 90s sound, like that fusion sound. To me, though, the way I learned the modes and what made sense to me is a little bit closer to what Mark Levine did. So I think of them more as like a static chord. So if I have, say, we're talking about C, so if I play, say, like a D minor 9, and I play this chord, and this is a static chord, right? And then I play that same C major scale that I played in the beginning, and I'm like, notice that now that note sounds like home. So this no longer sounds like the major scale. Right? You have that sound. So that would be Dorian. And it's only Dorian because the chord is static. If the moment I create a chord progression, something that I tell my students all the time, like a mantra, is that tonality destroys modality. So what I mean by that, and the reason why modes don't exist for the most part in classical music, is because the more complicated your harmony, the bigger your chord progression, the moment you start introducing chord progressions, everything pulls either towards a major sound or a minor sound. So then you no longer have modes. At that point, you either have a major key or you have a minor key. So when do we use modes? Well, modes are available to you when you have either a borrowed chord, a chord that's completely outside the key, and then you can play. That's what you have, like the default chord scale relationships, where against minor chords you play Dorian, against major chords you play Lydian, and against dominant chords unaltered you play Mixolydian, and against altered dominant chords you play the altered scale, right? So that is all true, and it works when the chords are borrowed. You're playing chords from the outside of the key. If you're playing from within a key, well, now you better stick to the tonal center, and that's what Jimmy Bruno gets really mad about in his channel. And but a lot of what he says is true. You have like these collection of pitches, or notes, right? That are the notes in the key, and that's what you should be creating your melody from. So if the chord progression sticks within the key, so if we're talking about a standard like Autumn Leaves, you're better off playing mostly from the tonal center. And if you happen to play that B7 flat 9, then you play the B altered scale over that chord, and you can make that work. I tend to play, what do I play with? I think I play like the E melodic minor scale instead, and I like that sound a little bit better. But it's not wrong to play the altered scale over that B7 flat 9. It's fine. It works just fine. So that's so when we're dealing with chords outside of the key, borrowed chords, we use modes. Now, in a non-jazz setting, if we're talking about just heavy metal or rock, well, whenever you have a drone, that could be just like a straight riff with where you're playing one note type thing, or you're doing like the raga thing where it's just like you have that sort of thing happening. It's just one note just droning. Then sure, modes are gonna work great over something like that, because that's originally how they were played, right? So you just had a droning tone. Sometimes you didn't even have that. It was monophonic music. So then only the melody mattered. There was no harmony, and if you did have harmony, usually it was just like a long drone, like a bass. The other way in which you might introduce modes is when you have two chords moving in a cyclical kind of way. So for instance, let's say we go back to our Dorian example, and let's say I'm playing in G major, but I want to create an A Dorian sound. So I can play an A minor 7 and a B minor 7 together. Then you get that sort of, sound. That's a little bit of a Santana vibe. And that also brings out the Dorian mode. So you can take any pair of two chords, and what you're doing there is really you're taking what would be a static chord. So say like let's look at Lydian, for instance. And for Lydian, I'd be playing a C Lydian, or now we're in G. I changed the key on you. So for C Lydian, we will be playing a C major 7 sharp 11. If I'm playing just a single chord, this chord. And then of course now, if I play something and it's like, that sounds like home now. But the application, and if you're playing, I was saying if you're playing fusion or jazz or any sort of more harmonically complex music, that's acceptable and it sounds fine and it works. I like that sound. But maybe you're not playing that. You're playing in a rock band, and you're like, oh well, how do I use that in my songs? Well, you still can. You just take two triads, or if you want to make it a little bit more interesting, like a triad with an added note. So, Joe Satriani actually used. There's a song that he's got called Rubina's Blue Sky Happiness, an excellent song. The song is in E, and there's like a little bridge in the middle. I think that's where the guitar solo happens. The whole song is a guitar solo, but like the part that would be like the solo, right? In the middle, and he modulates to C Lydian, and that is and it's a legitimate modulation to C Lydian, which is brilliant, because if you know about parallel keys, E major and E minor would be parallel keys, and C Lydian happens to be a relative key from E minor. If all of that goes over your head, don't worry about that. It goes beyond the scope of what I'm trying to talk about. But he achieves that by playing a C at 9, I think, and a D at 11. So all that means is he's playing a C major triad, C, E, G, and then adding the 9th on top. And then he's playing a D major with the 11th. And then you get this sound. So then that achieves the same thing as my static chord that I was doing before, this one. And it's not weird. Now all of a sudden now this fits within a pop or a rock song. And the same thing, just when you're playing that, now I can go, and it works, right? And it's gonna fit within the sound of a pop song. But all that to say that the modes are not scale positions, guys. The modes are sounds that you can find within the major scale. And yes, of course, we have, depending on if you're Levitt, you have 12 different positions, William Levitt. If you are like me, you kind of use like a hybrid hodgepodge of all the things that I've learned over the years, and I arrived with this 7 fingering scale system that works well for me. And then you can play in position, you can play 30 note per string, you have different ways that you can divide the fretboard. All that is just while you're learning to navigate the fretboard. But once you know how to do it, that stuff is, you pretty much transcend all that. That doesn't really matter that much, and you're looking more at the sound. So yes, you're gonna have positions across the board, but all those sounds are available in every position. Don't come over here and tell me that this is A Dorian, because it can be anything depending on what we're tonicizing, right? This could be G major, look, G major. We could make it E minor. I think I changed the fingering. I did change the fingering. So one more time. And I ended in G. There it is, E. Right. So E minor. So yeah, it can be anything. I can tonicize any one of those notes. I could call this B Phrygian. Right? If I'm playing something like, something like that, all of a sudden now this note is home. And you have that dark Phrygian sound with it. So that's all the modes are, guys. It's just sounds within the major scale. So don't think that position. So if I can summarize this video, positions are not modes. Positions are positions. They are designed for you to navigate the guitar. The modes are sounds within the different parent scales. In this case, we're talking about the major scale modes. And then we have other scales that, the melodic minor scale is also going to have 7 modes, and the harmonic minor. There are a few scales that are unique enough, that are not derivative from other scales, that have unique formulas or formulae, and they generate modes of their own, like the Hungarian minor, Hungarian major scales, and there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of exotic scales. I think there's like a total of 11 or 12 total unique 7-note scales, and each is going to have its own set of modes. But if you are just trying to play Western music, I would say just learning the major scale, the harmonic minor scale, the melodic minor scale, and if you really want to get out there, the harmonic major scale. With those options, you can play most of the music that's out there. Now, if you want exotic options, then you begin to look into these other more exotic scales, like the Hungarian minor, Hungarian major. And those are the two actually most useful out of the bunch, because then you get into like the enigmatic and all these other that man, you get more and more and more and more niche. So that's it. That's today's talk. It's about just scales and how we would use them. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.